All right, what's up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip, where every single week I come to you delivering different tips, tactics, and strategies to help you crush it inside your real estate business. These are things that I personally have learned over my 20-year-long real estate journey that allowed me to become one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, with selling well over 7,000 homes and sharing this information with you so that you can take this information, implement it inside your business, take massive action on these things inside your business, and go out there and create that business in life you truly know that you want and deserve. All right, so today I'm here to talk to you about the three biggest disruptions that are amongst our real estate industry right now. Now, one of these you already have well awareness of, but the other two you may not. And these are the three things currently taking place and that are going to continue to take place over the near future that I truly believe are going to create the biggest disruptions in our industry, and force a big percentage of our industry to massively struggle. Now, before I jump into these, I want to first lead off with this. I'm not sharing these things to elicit and create fear. That is not my style. I do not believe in operating from a place of fear, but I do believe in operating from a place of dealing in realities. Look, if somebody's coming to punch me in the face, I want to know that they're coming. So then, boom, I can shift out of the way and then, become unscathed, and I can just keep going on with my life, with my day, and so forth when it comes to that. So we got to deal in realities. We can't just be burying our head in the sand and pretending as if these things don't exist. History favors he or she that is most prepared. So the more that we have awareness with these, then the more effectively we can plan on these things, and we can go out there and adapt to ensure that we're crushing and thriving regardless of these different changes and these different disruptions that we are seeing. Unfortunately, most people have a very difficult time when it comes to change. And the reality is, you guys, is that business is a zero-sum game. Somebody's winning, somebody's losing, just the reality of the situation. So with this, though, I want to make sure that you are winning. I want to make sure I'm winning. That's why I pay attention to these at the level that I am. That's why I'm doing everything I need to do to adapt as an agent and as a team leader inside my own real estate business here in Phoenix, Arizona, and sharing these things with you, so that way you can have that awareness to go out there and adapt as well. So I'm not just going to be breaking down what these three things are. I'm going to break down what they are. I'm going to go in depth on each one of these three things, as to give you some rhyme to the reason as to why I believe that these are disruptions that we are facing right now, so you can have some education on these. But then most importantly, okay, like, well, then what? What do we do? What do we take action on, when it comes to these things, to make sure that we are coming out victorious on the other side of this? And we're seeing this not just in real estate, but in all industry. So often I get asked, or it's not infrequent that I should say that I get asked, well, Josh, I'm thinking about shifting a career. I'm struggling right now in my real estate business. I know the real estate industry is very volatile. I'm thinking about shifting, a career change. And my response to that is always, look, you're in the right place. Like, going to the corporate world is not safety right now. The corporate world is much more volatile than this. Like, you're in the right place. I can promise you that. But if you behave and operate like you have maybe to this point in your career, okay, yeah, then you're probably going to get blindsided. You're probably going to have a difficult time going forward, right? We got to go out there and have that ability to change. And as I said earlier, most people have a difficult time when it comes to change. But change is this one thing that's always taken place, always is taking place, always will take place. So why have resistance to something that is? It's like me having resistance and getting pissed off because the wind is blowing. Like, dude, sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's not. I can't control that, right? Like, all I can do is go out there and adapt accordingly to that. Okay, so making sure that you're not operating from a place of fear. Instead, we're going to focus on the things that we can control. You and I cannot control that these three things are taking place. It is what it is. It's beyond us. It's beyond anything within our control. So all we can do is focus on and be proactive, focus and be proactive on the things that we can control. So the three biggest disruptions, I'm just going to mention them right now, and then I'm going to do a deep dive into each. So we got, the NAR changes that we're all amongst right now. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this NAR rollout has been much smoother and much easier, and than probably a lot of people anticipated, right? Maybe you're not experiencing that, and I'll give you some tips on that. But we got, not just the NAR changes. I look at the NAR changes as version number one. I mean, we've got the iPhone 17 is getting ready, or iPhone 16 is getting ready to release, but they started with the version one. And then over like this 15-year period, now they got version number 16. So my guess is there's going to be a lot of future changes that come amongst with this, with what the DOJ is doing, because the DOJ has been very public on the fact that they don't really like this new NAR settlement proposal. Plus I'm sure that there's going to be agents and brokerages out there playing in the gray area or just not paying attention to these changes and could potentially reopen these lawsuits. Then from there, this current protection that we have is only in place for 5 years. And also doesn't account for, it's only the copycat seller lawsuits, right? It doesn't account for the buyer lawsuits currently in play. So we got NAR, DOJ, and kind of the future of lawsuits inside of our industry. So that's disruption number one, which we'll break down and talk about here in this podcast today. Number two, which I believe is going to blindside many more and create more of a struggle, way more so than the NAR and the lawsuit and the DOJ stuff, which is the economic winter that we are stepping deeper and deeper into. And when I say the economic winter, this is going to encompass really two things. We got the financial component of this, but then the psychological kind of mental health component of this that I want to break down and talk about today. And again, I'm going to go into not just what these things are, but just giving you also tactical, strategic things to go out there and do inside your business. Then we have the explosion of just the integration of AI and tech inside of our industry. And I'm not one that believes that tech and AI are going to replace the real estate professional, but I'm truly convinced. And when I say these things, I don't have a crystal ball. This is just my best hypothesis, if you will. I'm truly convinced that those that embrace tech and AI will 100% dominate and crush those that don't. Okay, so now let's chunk these down one by one. And real quick, before I jump into these, if you guys want to have access to more free tools, more free information, make sure that you're checking out www.gsdmode.com. So www.gsdmode.com. And on there, you've got my free ebook, which is 42 top tips. So I'm breaking down different, just a lot of different tips that have allowed me to go out there and create success inside my own business. So going through scripts and just everything from mindset to tracking to systems to different scripts to different strategies. And I've had about 10,000 people download this free ebook, and I get a lot of great feedback on it. It's 100% free. So if you want to go there, you can grab that on gsdmode.com. I also just updated and released my new 6 steps to 3xing or more your real estate business within the next 12 months, where I'm walking through the 6 most important things to focus on and dial in inside your business if you want to continue to grow, scale, and thrive. And that's a 3-hour hardcore in-depth masterclass that's 100% free that you can attend. And I highly recommend that you do. I look at that as that would be, if I were to die today, that would be my final message to this industry that's changed every element of my life. The 6 most important fundamentals that I found that have made the biggest difference, allowed me to continue to grow and scale my business for these 20-year-long journey that I've been in. And then from there, there's a place on there where you can schedule a free coaching blueprint strategy call with me. An hour-long, 60-minute long call if you want to take advantage of that. I can't do that for that much longer. It's just a limited time thing on there. So make sure you're checking out gsdmode.com for those free resources. Okay, so now let's break down, the NAR DOJ lawsuits. So again, as I mentioned, I think what we're facing right now is kind of version number 1. And I think what's really important here is, these are changing our ways of operation. These are going to be new rules of engagement. And my best guess is, again, we're on version 1 of this. We're going to see a lot more changes behind this. If you look at the DOJ, again, the DOJ has been very public on the fact that they do not like this NAR proposed settlement statement. And one thing that I think is really important to also understand, at least as, right now it's September 10th. So we had to move forward with these changes as an industry, at least here in the States, on August 17th. But these still haven't been signed off on by the judge, right? We've got preliminary approval, but they're not expected to get actually signed off and implemented by the judge until November, this coming November. So then from there, now we got all these MLSs watching us, our brokers watching us, and I'm sure there's some attorneys watching us and kind of from the sidelines and see what we're doing. But once this gets signed by the judge, then it's kind of game on. And one thing that's important here to understand is this has allowed it to be where we are now amongst the biggest microscope that we've ever been under as an industry. And the attorneys have been very vocal to the fact that they're going to be watching us as an industry very, very closely. And if we think that we can get away with not abiding by these changes to a T, you think you're wrong, right? They're they've if you think about this, they just got $1 billion payout which if you break down the math on this, it's like, okay, the actual, if you want to look at it from a victim standpoint, I don't really think they're victims, but they do. Yeah, right. The home sellers that felt that they were misinformed, that pushed forth this, and I don't know if it was pushed forth by the consumer or the attorneys that actually initiated this, but either way, you've got the consumer that believes that they were impacted negatively from our old ways of operation. So they got awarded what, like $35 per person that entered that class action lawsuit, and the attorneys got what, like $350 million. So this is $1 billion payday, like boom, immediately. So you don't think that these attorneys aren't going to come for more? Yeah, right. And people are going to come for more. And then again, okay, we got the DOJ that does not like, and again, the DOJ has been very vocal on the fact that they do not like this NAR lawsuit settlement statement. They want what the DOJ wants, at least the current DOJ, the current powers that be inside the DOJ, they want true commission decoupling. So they want it where, okay, listing agent responsible for paying, our seller responsible for paying, listing agent, buyer responsible for paying, buyer's agent, no way, shape, form, or fashion can the other compensate the other, which right now we don't have true commission decoupling. We have a different path of how we get paid. We have a different, way that these things are disclosed on the HUD and all of these things. But in a lot of cases, at least in my market, where I'm seeing is, okay, most cases, the seller is still offering, paying the buyer realtors agent representation fee. It's not coming out of the buyer's pocket. So, okay, let's just say the DOJ gets what they want, and then from there, okay, buyers are 100% responsible for paying their buyer agent rep. How many buyers right now can afford to go out there and do that? I don't know, right? And if we look at, the cool thing is we got other countries that are set up this way, like New Zealand and other countries that are set up how the DOJ wants it. And I can tell you this, from being somebody that coaches agents, teams, and broker owners in New Zealand, I can tell you, Ben, that they're crushing it. They're killing it. This is why I say don't operate from a place of fear. It's just good. We just got to make sure that we're having awareness of this stuff so we can hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? So then we're good in any different situation and scenario, because it's going to change as these changes keep rolling out. It's going to continue to change how we have to go out there and operate, the strategies that we implement, and it's just going to change, again, it's changing the rules of the game, right? So we've got, the DOJ kind of coming behind these, the NAR settlement statement and seeing, okay, what changes then come forth from that. Then the other thing is just, and I know I'm being repetitive here because I talked about this in the kind of the intro of this podcast, but this is only protection for 5 years. Only protects from the seller and copycat seller lawsuits, does not protect from other lawsuits, the buyer lawsuits, other lawsuits that may come up. And look, it's just a matter of time before an agent slips up or brokerage slips up and, isn't dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and I don't know, I'm not an attorney, but does that then open the ability to reopen this lawsuit if enough people in our industry aren't abiding by these new rules of engagement and they're looking for, clever workarounds and they're not operating, they're operating in the gray. They're not, operating the way that they're supposed to. So again, looking at this as, kind of version number one, with the expectation. And again, I could be wrong, but again, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I'm going to have that level of awareness. I'm going to be paying attention, and I'm planning on many more changes to come that I need to be prepared for. And I need to, just operate like water, man. Like, you got water flowing, and then all of a sudden this bank hits. Okay, well, then the water just, keeps flowing. It keeps moving. It just, rolls around that and just keeps adapting to these different changes. And as I mentioned, we're now under the biggest microscope that we've ever been under as an industry collectively. So mistake that I'm seeing so many people make inside of our industries, they're not taking this stuff serious enough. Now, I'm not saying to lose sleep over this, but you should have a healthy element of fear. This is something that you should be taking very, very seriously. If you look at different MLSs, like my MLS example here in Phoenix, Arizona, Armless is the MLS that I'm part of. It's a 3 strike you're out policy. In each one, there's different, smaller fine, bigger fine, biggest fine. But then from there, on the third one, not only is it a $15,000 fine, but you also lose MLS privileges indefinitely within that MLS. So these are like also career-ending circumstances and repercussions, if you will, for those that aren't paying attention. Okay, so now what to do? And as I mentioned, don't operate from a place of fear. Also, don't allow yourself to operate from a blame game, this isn't fair. They shouldn't be doing this. Look, I'm not saying that you're wrong on those things. But how does that serve and support you? That steals your time, energy, and focus onto what you should be focusing on, or from away from what you should be focusing on. It just is what it is. This is beyond your control, beyond my control. What your opinion is, what my opinion is of these things is 100% irrelevant. Just is what it is. So then from there, okay, I got to focus on what I can control. The analogy I always give, okay, if my house is on fire and it's burning down, okay, like, does it make sense for me to start thinking about and allocating time and energy in that situation of, okay, well, who started the fire? No, it doesn't. What I need to allocate my energy and focus on is getting myself, getting my family, getting my wife, my kids, my dogs to safety. And then once we're to safety, and I know for a fact we're at safety and we're out of harm's way, then, okay, if I want to start investigating, who started the fire, then okay, fine. But right now it's like, okay, we got to allocate our time and energy onto the things that we can control. Okay, so then from there, making sure that you are educating, so you have awareness and you are educating yourself on these changes at the highest possible level. So as an example, here in Arizona, they rolled out 27 new and amended documents with these changes. So I got to make sure that I'm extremely well educated on those. And if you are a team or a brokerage, making sure that your agents are extremely well educated on those. The more education that you have, the more that you understand the rules of engagement, the better than that you can play by those rules, right? And then from there, the better that you can then educate the consumer, the better that you can go out there and educate your clients, potential clients, and educate cross-sell agents. That's been the biggest frustration that we've had with this, is the lack of uneducation, the lack of unpreparedness from the cross-sell agents, which seems to be where we're spending most of our time with these new rollouts and new changes, is having to kind of educate and babysit them because they don't really know what is going on. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking to all of them. There's some great agents out there, but there's a lot of bad as well. Okay, so making sure that you are fully educated on a national level, what's going on your local level, what's going on, documentation level, what you need to do, how you need to do it, all those different things. Education is power, information is power, right? Then the secondary thing here is making sure, based on these new rules of engagement, that you're breaking down each one of your strategies and or potential new future strategies, and asking yourself, okay, how do I need to shift up my protocol within these strategies? So let's just say I'm doing open houses. Okay, like when at the end of the open house, when I ask for that appointment to see if they, I can go show them other properties. Okay, how do I need to then flip up what my process is, change up what my process is or was, to then be abiding by these new rules of engagement? So then that way I'm on the up and up. Then breaking, okay, my sign calls, my Zillow leads, my Facebook leads, my YouTube leads, whatever lead source that you're doing, chunking that down and breaking down and strategizing what is the most effective way for me to implement these new rules. So then that way you're prepared based on all of your strategies, so you're not getting caught in a hard situation, right? Then the last element is making sure that you're obsessing over your processes and systems. Now, why do I bring this up? So your processes are just step-by-step documentation of your overall strategies. And then those processes, so the instructions, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, right? The instructions, those then live inside your system. Systems only exist for our processes to live inside of, so that we can make sure everything is executed in the same way each and every single time, to ensure things don't get missed, and to do those action steps in the most effective, efficient manner. So the reason why this is so important is one of the quickest ways to increase your personal capacity. So maybe your personal capacity is, like, I don't know, closing 4 deals a month, and you want to be able to close 5 deals a month. Quickest way to do that is through dialing in your systems and processes, right? It's going to create predictability, but it's also going to allow you to do more in less time. Well, all this extra added additional work based on these new rules of engagement, we want to make sure that it's not decreasing your capacity. So maybe before, in the old way, your capacity was 4 deals a month. Well, let's just say, okay, these new rules of engagement are adding a 20% more workload to your plate. Well, we don't want to get it where then all of a sudden, boom, now you're only able to do 3 deals a month in the same amount of energy, work, and time. And now you just took a huge haircut on income. We want to make sure that doesn't impact you, right? So again, the quickest way to increasing your overall productivity, your overall capacity, meaning closing more deals in the same amount of time or less, is by dialing in your systems and processes. Okay, now let's transition into item number 2, disruption number 2, which is the economic winter that we are stepping deeper into. All right, so things are going to get, I was just speaking at a conference, and several of the speakers were like, oh man, we just got to get through the next 90 days. Things are going to get much better. Look, I'm much more pessimistic than some of those speakers that were giving that information and knowledge at that. From every piece of evidence that I have, and I spent a lot of time studying this stuff and researching this stuff. And it's one of the things that's allowed me to go out there and continue to grow and scale my business, regardless of what's going on in the market. Even during the great financial crisis, the worst housing market crash in recorded history, my business was able to grow and thrive, not because I'm somebody special, not because I have some innate gift, but it's because I pay attention. So by the time this thing burned down and crashed hard, I was positioned with 35 different banks and outsourcers and asset managers. I was already very well versed on the short sales and short sale process. And, so when you're paying attention to this stuff, then you don't have surprises, so with this, I truly believe that things are going to get much, much uglier from an economic standpoint than before they get better. I hear things all the time of like, oh, dude, once interest rates come down, this shit will be fixed and we'll have all this buyer demand come back in. And again, I'm not saying that won't happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea, but I'm not convinced that it's an automatic sure thing. And I don't really believe that it will make that much of an overall impact. We've already seen interest rates come down substantially over the last 12 months, but we're still seeing transaction volume decline. And why? Right now is the most unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen to ever exist in recorded history. Right now, and then if you really study history at a deep level, right now it's, at least in recorded history, we only have so much record of history. But right now, when you look at inequality between the mega rich and the everybody else, we've never seen at a point in time in history inequality be at this level. So right now it is, when it comes from an economic standpoint, like the worst time from a financial standpoint to be alive in recorded history that we have evidence on. Then from there, if you look at the consumer, which is our customer, right? You and I are consumers, but also that's where our customers are. If you look at the overall debt versus savings rate, we've never seen a point in time since this stuff has been recorded by the Federal Reserve where this gap between savings and debt has been so large. And also, we've never seen a point in time where it's been accelerating, where that gap's been getting larger at this acceleration point. So what that shows me is that people aren't just barely hanging on. People aren't hanging on, and they're having to stack up more and more debt. Then when we look at debt, it's not just consumer debt. It's government debt. It's business debt, right? When you look at corporate debt, government debt, consumer debt, debt on all levels is at a magnitude of scale that we have never seen in recorded human history. And this is a global problem. And I don't see any ways that this can be fixed. Now, if you look at this, okay, what is this creating? What is happening with this? So if you were making 200 grand 5 years ago, and you're still making 200 grand a year right now, maybe your business has just stayed stagnant, you're actually only making about 100 grand, because we've seen about 50% loss in our purchasing power over the last 4 or 5 years, right? And why is that? Because the amount of debt, especially on the government scale, is just absolutely exploding. I know that there was all this, inflation because of supply chains and, all of this stuff. And look, there's probably some truth to that. And there's some disruptions there, but all that's been corrected and fixed for some time now, right? Like what we are seeing right now with life getting so expensive, the primary reason that this is taking place is because we have a government that is stacking $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. And they are at a point right now where we're going to be entering what is called a debt spiral, where they just have to print more money to cover to cover the interest in the debt. They can't even afford the interest in the debt. The debt payments now, just the interest on that debt, has now surpassed our military spending, all of this stuff, right? And then don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do. What they do is actually shows us like where we are headed, where we are going. So if you look at the powers that be, the moves that they're making, when we start breaking down, and I could spend hours and hours and hours on this stuff, but let's just, with the amount of, immigration coming in, open borders, amount of immigration coming in. Okay. Those people have to eat, they have to be housed. They have to, all of that stuff, right? The government continues to grow. They continue to spend more money, both domestically, with social programs, whatever, they're continuing to expand and grow. If you look at our GDP, they keep talking about, the economy is so healthy because of our GDP. Well, over 50% of our GDP is government funded right now, right? So if you remove government spending, if we actually had a fiscally responsible government, we'd be in a freaking depression right now if it wasn't for, the amount of debt and the spending that our government is taking place in. But then from there, not just domestically, you look internationally, but there's 40 some wars taking place simultaneously right now. And the amount of funding that we're funding all the different wars to try to, pick players and that's the path that they are going. So what they're having to do, and just to reduce this into very simplistic terms, when they're printing money, they're taking money from the future, pulling it into the now, and that is highly inflationary. That is no different than back in the Roman era where they're adding copper to the gold coins so they could create more gold coins, but they are devaluing the currency. That is what's happening live time in front of our face. So then with this, because they've got either that path that they continue to take, or they can default on the debt, which is going to create other problems, or we can go into, they could let the powers that be let us naturally correct and go into a deflationary depression for a long, long time to come. Right? And when we look at these two things, I know this might sound harsh, but I think the best thing long-term for us is just a country civilization is to pull the Band-Aid off and let us go through a deflationary depression. Now that would be hard. If you were to see, let's just say real estate prices drop 60, 70%, that'd be hard on a lot of people. But think about it this way. It's not that real estate is so high right now when it comes to price. It's that your dollar is worth so much less, right? So your purchase power, because it's not just real estate, it's everything. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time your utility bills, everything is just going up and up and up. What that means is that your dollar is losing value at a rapid rate. If you look at Gen Z today, the Gen Zs that are in their 20s, and you compare that to baby boomers, when baby boomers were in their 20s, Gen Z today has 90% less purchase power with their dollar. So a baby boomer had $1. Gen Z now today has 10 cents, if you want to look at it that way, when it comes from a quality of life standpoint. And with the actions that the powers that be are taking, this shit's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. Now, I'm not going to say that the powers that be have the full capacity and power to be able to fight against a deflationary depression. That's all yet to see. But I believe that they're going to do everything just through their actions right now to do everything they can to fight a deflationary depression, because our monetary system is built off of, they need debt, right? They need inflation, they need debt to keep the current monetary system expanding and growing. So we got the financial aspect to this economic winter that we're stepping deeper into. Then we have, the psychological, right? So if you look at this, just the explosion of mental health crisis. We've never had a point in time, even though, like up till about 5 years ago, we were the wealthiest, country to ever exist in human history, at least that we have record of. But you have the most depressed, unhappy people. And you can blame cell phones. You can blame all these things. For me personally, I don't think it's one thing. I think it's just a combination of all of these different things that then just sets us into really what we're experiencing right now is decadence, right? So, but then from there, okay, as this mental health issue just continues to grow and expand on top of, this financial issue, like when you study history, what we're amongst right now. I mean, this is what then turns to and leads to civil wars and revolutions. And, so either way, whether we go through a deflationary depression or if we continue down this path, either way, there's going to be massive pain ahead that we just got to be prepped for, and we got to be, ready for, when it comes to that. So we're either going to go through deflationary depression or hyperinflation, or they default in the debt and then reset the monetary system, probably into some type of a, digital currency with surveillance, and that could open up, depending on the people that control that, which can be studying up history. It usually doesn't go in the way of, the average person like you and I, us peasants, next thing you know, we got something like, China's got going on with their digital currency, where if you're not a good boy and girl, your money gets shut off, or you can't allocate funds to certain things, and, whatever. So however this goes, there's going to be big disruptions here. And this is why I led this off with, hey, I know I'm saying some fearful things here, but it just is what it is, right? So I'm not saying to operate from fear. I'm not saying like during the Great Depression, during the Great Financial Crisis, which were, arguably the two hardest kind of financially hit times in our country for different reasons. There's a lot of people that went out there and became millionaires, became billionaires, so there's always success to be had, but we have to have awareness of which path that it's going. So then that way we can adapt accordingly. And I'm not saying that we are going to see anything like we saw in the Great Financial Crisis when it comes to real estate. But I'm also not saying that we won't. Maybe it's not nearly as bad. Maybe it's as bad. Maybe it's worse. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. I am planning on it being way worse. Not saying it's going to be, but that's what I'm prepping and planning for. So then that way, if worst case scenario happens, right? then boom, I'm prepped and ready. If it doesn't happen, boom, I'm prepped and ready. It's the best way I found to be able to hedge for your overall business is to hope for the best, plan for the worst. Okay, so what to do about it? Again, step number one is to hope for the best, plan for the worst. Don't operate in a place of fear. Just be proactive. So then that way you have, when you hope for the best, plan for the worst. Okay, if we have the deflationary depression, if we go through, the biggest housing market crash and economic crash that we've ever seen in recorded history, what do I need to do to position myself in my real estate business to be, to thrive during that time? And then plan for the different alternatives. Then from there, making sure you're treating your business as a business. He or she that's the greatest operator wins, right? So what do I mean by treating your business as a business? You got to obsess over strategy, making sure that you got the most effective strategies in place, based on what we're seeing with the overall market. Then from there, okay, you got to make sure that you got your processes dialed in, your systems dialed in. You got to make sure that you're tracking every central KPI inside your business. And eventually, as you continue to grow and scale, you got to make sure that you are mastering the overall hiring process and adding the right people at the right time so you have the right leverage inside your business. That's what I mean is treating your business as a business. If you're treating your business as a business, you are going to have a plan with precision where you know what you got to do to win each and every single day, each and every single week, each and every single month. And you're able to execute on that precision plan, and you're tracking and measuring each aspect of that. And then again, you're developing and building out a system and process-based business, and then plugging in the right people when needed to do so. Okay, the last element here is making sure you're playing strategic offense. Look, with the path that we're at least taking right now, this is going to continue to wipe out people from being able to partake in the real estate game. Meaning that buyers and sellers, right? So the path that we're going on right now, if we experience life continue to get more expensive by 10% year over year, it's going to make it where there's just lesser and lesser people that are able to partake in real estate. So this right now, I know you've heard me talk about this a ton on the podcast. Sorry, swap out my gum here. Is that you need to make sure that you are identifying and targeting people that have the highest probability of needing our services in this market. If you are doing a ton of lead gen, lead follow-up, and you're getting a bunch of people that are like, they're just unmotivated, they're not interested, there's no sense of urgency, you are targeting the wrong people. So you got to, when I talk about strategic offense, you got to make sure that you're targeting the right people that have the highest probability of needing your services in this market. Then from there, you got to identify timeline and psychology. So what's the average timeline, conversion rate for this lead source? So then that way you have the right follow-up plan, you're giving it enough time and you're following up in the right ways to maximize conversions. Understand the psychology per lead source allows you to then make sure you got the right messaging, the right scripting, the right messaging to match that lead source to maximize conversions. So that's what I mean by strategic, right? Targeting the right people, understanding timeline and psychology so we can put together the right plan, targeting the right people. Then the last aspect is, making sure that you've acquired the right skill sets to be able to implement, execute on that plan accordingly. So because if anybody's struggling with a lead source and a lead gen, lead follow-up, I know it's within one of these three areas, right? They're either have the wrong strategy for that thing, they have the wrong timeline and psychology, which would be meaning process, right? Then from there, they're lacking the right skill set to have success with those things. It's always found within one of those three things. So we got to make sure that we are dialing that in. The last element to strategic offense then is playing offense, not defense. By offense, I mean right now, when you have 40, 50% lesser people that are able to partake in the real estate market, you can't wait for shit to come to you. You got to be proactive and go after them. You got to go after it, right? So I'm not waiting for anything to come to me. So if my business was, let's just say, all past client repeat referral business, I'm waiting for those deals to come to me. And all of a sudden we got 50% less people that can buy and sell in this marketplace. Okay, I got to expect that business is going to be down 50%. So I'm not going to abandon. I'm still going to do those things and work that lead source. But then I'm going to add additional new client acquisition strategies that are in my full control. So let's just say example, I'm going after absentee owners, which is one of my favorite lead sources in this current economic time, current market that we're in. Well, I know $500, 50 conversations, one listing taken. So then from there, if I want to take, a listing every single week, okay, I know then I got to do Monday through Friday, 100 dials, 10 conversations, boom, one listing taken, right? I know what I got to do where my fate is in my own control. So playing strategic offense. Okay, now let's talk about tech and AI. So here's what's going to be important with tech and AI. Number one, you got to embrace it. You may not like it. Look, when it comes to social media, I hate social media. From a personal use consumer aspect, I cannot stand it. I get zero joy out of it. If anything, I get on there, it doesn't make me feel good about I don't like any element of it. I don't think it's healthy for our society. But again, all of that's irrelevant, right? Of what my opinion is on this thing. But just because I don't like to use it as, I'm not, being a user of it doesn't mean that other people don't, right? The average person logs into their social media app 17 times a day. They're on social media for like 5 hours a day, right? It's where the eyeballs are at. So I'm going to then use social media, but not allow it to use me. So I use it as the effective business tool that it is. So even though I can't stand it and don't like it, doesn't mean I'm not going to adopt it and understand it and then implement it inside my business. I just don't allow myself to get stuck, kind of sucked into the negative elements of it and to waste my time and, or impact negatively my mental health, because I think a very powerful term here is use it. Don't allow it to use you. Right. So we want to be a content creator, not a content, viewer. And when I say that, like, there's nothing wrong with using it as an element of entertainment if you enjoy that, but just like be careful with it. Right. So in that same way, you don't need to like tech. You don't need to like AI. I don't think anything's good about AI overall, like in the long term. Like I wished it didn't exist, but look, it's been here since the 50s. AI isn't something new. But the explosion and the advancement is something that new that we're seeing lifetime in our lives. And as I said before, I do not believe that AI is going to replace us as a real estate professional, but 100% those that are embracing it and utilizing it inside of our business are 100% going to go out there and crush and dominate those that don't. So we just got to have that awareness, embrace it, understand it. Then from there, one thing that's going to be really important is our ability to acquire skill sets at a quicker rate is going to be that much more important. Now, this doesn't mean that you got to learn faster. This does not mean that you got to read more books or, for some of you, you might need to possibly read more books. You're not reading enough books or like doing enough self-development. But I'm not saying that I'm not planning on self-developing more. I already self-develop a ton. I'm not planning on having to like 10x my self-development. Right. What we need to do, though, is get more strategic with our overall self-development. So what I'm going to walk you guys through here, so you're not wasting your time with self-development, because most of you watch and listen to this, you waste as much time on your self-development as you would just binge watching some Netflix or show on Hulu. Right? Because you don't approach your self-development with intention. So, thing number one here is to understand that with self-development, the only way you're going to gain actual true knowledge, true wisdom, and have power from self-development is if what you are learning, what you are self-developing on is actively solving a problem that you are experiencing right now. And there's been so much research and studies on this. If you don't believe me, you can go out there and do your own due diligence on this, but it has been proven time and time again that the only way you truly learn and retain that knowledge and truly gain wisdom from that knowledge is to be self-developing around an active problem that you have right now, where you can take that knowledge that you're learning, implement it live time, and get that lifetime feedback on how that information that you're learning is doing, right? So it's called just in case self-development versus just in time self-development. Just in case is kind of self-developing on shit that may or may never happen, that may or may never apply to me in my business. And that's what most people do. No, we want to go flip that to just in time. What is, the biggest problems that you are experiencing right now, problems that you're experiencing right now that you must get dialed in. And then I want to allocate all my time and energy to solving a specific problem. So then I can also implement and take action on, and I can relate as I'm learning that new knowledge onto how to solve this problem. And I'm able to implement it live time. So I want to walk you through my self-development framework. And I call it my mastery framework. So think of framework as just a formula, right? To go out there and self-develop most effectively. Okay, so step number one is to identify. Now you need to identify the problem that you are facing. And you do this by asking this single question. What is the biggest current obstacle and or opportunity that I'm currently facing? That if I dial this thing in, if I get this thing dialed in, if I get this mastered, if I solve this problem and get this dialed in, I'll make the biggest immediate impact on my overall real estate business. So now we know the thing. Then every conference, every book, every podcast, every webinar, everything that you do when it comes to your self-development should be allocated to just solving that problem. Then from there, now that we know, okay, we've identified, now we go into phase number two, which is this study. Now, the reason why I say study versus learn is, okay, when you were studying things back in high school, back in college, whatever, like you knew that you were going to be tested on this. So you're not just reading it, you're reading it, you're rereading it, you're underlining it, you're highlighting it, you're taking notes on it because you know that you're going to be tested, on this knowledge. Well, here in the business world, in real life, you're not taking a test. Your test is your bank account, right? That's your true knowledge and wisdom. Like, dude, if your bank account, if your results aren't where you want it to be, sorry, you don't have the knowledge yet. Yeah, right. So then from there, we got to make sure that we are studying. So then that can take us to the next phase, which is then making sure that you truly understand that topic. You truly understand that thing. Because until we truly understand that thing, we then can't implement that thing effectively. So we want to make sure that we're studying at a high enough level where we truly grasp it and truly understand. How do you know if you truly understand something? Number one, you're able to implement it in the right way to go out there and get the proven results. Number two, when you can get up in a group of peers, other real estate agents in your office, whatever, and you can teach that to them where it's simplified, where they get it, they understand it, they can implement it and get results out of those things. So then boom, we got that understanding element of the framework. Then we take us to the next step, which is then to implement. Again, you cannot implement anything effectively until you truly understand it. Then when you implement it effectively, then boom, this is the last piece of the framework. Now you get the proven results that you're after. Now you can reverse engineer this. Okay, if I'm not getting my proven results, let me then go back and see if I implemented this effectively. Now, if you don't know if you implement it effectively, that means that you don't understand it. And now you got to reverse this and go back to study mode more. Right. But this is the mastery framework. So you can make sure that you're learning the right things at the right times, throughout your career when it comes to this. Right. So really, really important, because your skill set acquisition is going to become that much more important. Your ability to master and acquire new skill sets is going to be more important going forward because of the explosion and integration of tech and AI inside of our businesses. All right, so these are the three things. Again, we got the NAR DOJ lawsuits, item number one, disruption number one, economic winter that we're stepping deeper and deeper into, and understanding that things are going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better. And then the explosion and integration of tech and AI. So we broke all of those down, talked about, top tips of what you need to do to implement those inside your business. So I hope that you found this helpful. Again, if you want access to more free tools, more free resources, make sure that you're checking out www.gsdmode.com. Snag my free ebook. Jump on my if you enjoy this podcast, you're going to love that 3-hour in-depth masterclass. So I'm doing, that's where I'm just peeling back, doing a deep dive for about 3 hours of walking you through the most important fundamentals that you got to master in your business if you want to go out there and continue to grow and scale on all fronts. We talk about a lot of amazing, powerful things in there. So I highly encourage you to jump on that. And if you are stuck on what the best strategy is for you, you can always book for a limited time. I shouldn't say always, but until I can't continue doing these, which isn't going to be for much longer. I know in a previous podcast, I think I gave a hard stop date of November or September 7th, but I decided to continue these for a little bit longer just because I know there's so many people inside of our industry that are hurting right now. So I'm continuing these for a little bit longer. I don't know how long. I'm not going to commit to a time frame right now, but I'm just opening them up for a little bit longer where you can schedule a 100% free Zoom coaching call, strategy call with me personally, where I can learn more about you, your business, and then based on your strengths, your situation, deliver to you, that at least what I believe would be the most effective strategy for you based on my experience. So that's what we want to take advantage of. Again, you can access all of that at www.gsdmode.com. All right, truly appreciate you watching and listening. Keep crushing it, and I will see you next time. Peace.